Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Sarah Sidman, and I am the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Communications at ArtsFund. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a light-skinned white woman with long brown hair, wearing a burgundy top with a black sweater and silver jewelry. I am seated in a corner of my home office with brightly colored art framing me on either side. As we begin today's briefing, I would like to acknowledge that the city of Seattle, where ArtsFund is based, is on the occupied lands of the Coast Salish people, specifically the ancestral lands of the Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Muckleshoot, and Suquamish tribes, who have stewarded this land throughout generations. I would also like to acknowledge that many with us today are on differing territories, and we join you in honoring and recognizing those as well. To make today's event as accessible as possible to those of differing abilities, we have a number of accessibility features. 2 ASL interpreters are joining us and will be appearing alternately on your screen. You can also enable the automatically generated captions by clicking on the closed caption live transcript button in the meeting control bar and then adding enable transcription. You can also click and drag the provided subtitles anywhere on your screen. Finally, you can click on the small arrow to the left of the live transcript button to adjust your subtitle settings or to open the full transcript at any time. Please be aware the subtitles will not be 100% accurate as they are automatically generated. We have also asked our speakers to visually describe themselves the first time they speak, as I did at the top of the program. It's been over a year since the pandemic-related closures began affecting our community. Since the early days of the pandemic, ArtsFund has been collecting data on the impacts of the pandemic to cultural nonprofits throughout the central Puget Sound region, with quarterly reports starting back in April and May of 2020. Shortly, you'll be hearing from Michael Greer, ArtsFund's president and CEO, who will share new data being released today. You'll also hear directly from 4 regional arts leaders about where we go from here. Today's event is both a media briefing and a community conversation, and there will be opportunity for Q&A at the end. I want to let you know that while your cameras and mics are off, the chat function is on, and a great way to engage during the program. We invite all of you to participate that way. However, to ask any questions, please use the Q&A feature. There's a Q&A feature also at the base of the screen. I'm getting reports that the captioning is not quite working, so we'll be working on that and share some updates later on how to access that. Our apologies. Today's event is also streaming live on Facebook and will be available on ArtsFund's website after in the afternoon. But for interaction and to pose a question for the Q&A, you must be logged in to the Zoom event. We are honored to start today's event with a special performance, after which we'll be joined by Sung Yang, ArtsFund's board chair, to frame today's conversation. Benjamin Hunter is a Seattle-based musician, composer, producer, community entrepreneur, and educator. Among his many credits, he is also currently an artist in residence at On the Boards. Benjamin, if you could please join me on the screen and unmute. And it is our honor today to be joined by Benjamin Hunter. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Sarah and ArtsFund, for having me today. My name is Benjamin Hunter. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a Black man with beautiful black locks that you can't see because they're tied up in braids behind my head. And behind me is my menagerie of musical instruments and art and color and shape and sound and fun. So thank you for joining me. The song that I'm going to play for you guys is a song called New Future that I wrote about our kids and how smart and capable and just inventive and fascinating they are. And so I wrote this with them in mind. Did you find them children? Did you find them children? They done run on. They done run on. They done run on. And where they going? Ain't telling no one. Did you find them children? Did you find them children? They wrote a letter. They wrote a letter. Left early morning. Left early morning. Left early morning. I went to find a new dawn. Some they can smile on. And wrote a letter. They wrote a letter. Went off in the country, went off in the country, to the mountains, to the valley, to the river. Gonna talk to that old grove, sit down with a tree folk. Went off in the country, went off in the country. They said they'd be back. They said they'd be back when the moon shine, when the moon shine, when the moon shine, and the wolf cried, and the dream died. They said they'd be back, that they'd be back. Did you find them children? 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 Thank you, folks, so very much. Hope you guys have a nice day.
Benjamin Hunter, everyone. What an incredible performance. Thank you, Benjamin, for kicking us off right. That's why I love attending arts events, because we all know cool people that do art. And thank you all for joining us today. I also want to thank our ASL interpreters. My name is Sung Yang, and I am the board chair of ArtsFund. I use he, him pronouns, and I am Asian and a proud first-generation South Korean immigrant. Behind me, and the only thing worth noting, is a cherished piece of still art created by my daughter and her classmates when she was in elementary school. Today, we start the process of healing through understanding. Understanding and assessing the impact and also the transformation of our arts and culture sector as a result of the COVID-19 global pandemic. And as we slowly begin the process of recovery, one thing is clear to me. When we return to some semblance of normalcy, it won't be the normal that we experienced in the past. It will be a new normal. These last 12 months have reshaped our world. Social upheaval, hate motivated violence, economic disruption. But this kind of public reckoning has also brought long overdue attention around societal inequities and the opportunity for collective action to become a better society. And this is the power of the arts, especially in times of crisis, to help us better understand ourselves and heal through empathy, expression, and storytelling. But to become a better and more equitable society, we need a strong and thriving cultural sector. The work presented today and continuing into the future is intended to help get us there. I want to recognize and thank those who've stepped up in the past year to support arts and culture. 70% of donors, for example, to ArtsFund's COVID-19 Relief Fund were new donors. And as you'll hear in the data report, significant levels of contributed income support are keeping nonprofits able to serve the community while ability to produce in-person programming and the related earned income streams are currently non-existent. I also want to recognize the support of innumerable individuals, foundations, and businesses who have stepped up during these challenging times. And I also finally want to thank and acknowledge our political leadership. Just this past week, King County Executive Dow Constantine announced his priority of allocating over $30 million from the county's share of the Federal America Rescue Plan funds to support arts and culture. But clearly, more public and private support will be needed. This will not be solved overnight, but I am confident that our sector will remain resilient, and especially with the active leadership of those present today, we will thrive and we will succeed. So now I have the privilege of introducing one of those key leaders who will help show the way. You have to be undaunted and courageous to switch jobs in the middle of a global pandemic, but that's what Michael Greer did to become President and CEO of ArtsFund in June of last year. And let me be blunt, as board chair and head of the search committee, we felt a heavy burden and an obligation to find not only a great leader for the organization, but also an individual dynamic and strong enough to support and advocate for the entire sector. But I think we succeeded, and I'm confident that once you get to know Michael, you will agree. I am grateful for him and the small but mighty staff of ArtsFund. So with that, I introduce Michael Greer.
Thank you so much, Sung. And thank you all for joining us today. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Greer, and as Sung mentioned, I am the president and CEO at ArtsFund. I identify as a light-skinned Black male. I have no hair, a mustache, and I am wearing a turtleneck and a gray sport coat, and I'm sitting in front of a window that looks out onto my garden. I'd like to start by thanking everyone who made this work today possible, and that includes Sarah Sidman and the rest of our dedicated staff, all of our partner organizations, and the artists that took time out of their demanding schedules to fill out our surveys, and to all of you, our audience, supporters, and stakeholders in this work. Without your support, our mission falls silent. Now, as Sarah mentioned, we've been tracking data since the early days of the pandemic. And as a part of ArtsFund's ongoing mission to measure the impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic, this snapshot captures data from 77 central Puget Sound arts, culture, heritage, and scientific nonprofits. The findings reflect significant impacts on organizations, from reduction of skilled personnel to financial loss to perceived and permanent shifts in the sector. Now, when I look at the data, I see three key numbers that tell a story. Number one, As of this collection, over 56% of our organizations still have staff either furloughed or laid off. Now, what does that really mean? On the one hand, we are encouraged because as this is a decline from earlier in the pandemic, and as recently as last October, 73% of organizations we surveyed still reported layoffs or furloughs due to the pandemic. Yet, despite that optimism, looking ahead, our data show that the sector will see almost 30% less expenditure on personnel in 2021 as compared to pre-pandemic levels. These 2021 projections mean that we will have lost a significant amount of highly trained and dedicated workforce for at least the next 12 months, many of which may not come back to the sector at all. It also suggests that the artists and staff that have remained in the sector are going to be working even harder than before. Number two, our sector will see an estimated 65% decrease in earned income in 2021 as compared to pre-pandemic levels. This highlights the increased need to do more with less. And while that is a skill that arts and culture nonprofits possess on par with any industry on the planet, it is not something that is sustainable for our workforce in the long term. And number three, despite those two prior statistics, 70%, now I'm going to say it again, 70% of our sector feel that they are confident or extremely confident that they have what they need in order to reopen when public mandates allow. Now, so we've got a quarter less staff, less than half the income, yet over half of our organizations believe that they can come back. Why? I think it's because they understand their role in this recovery. They understand that their reopening is not just about them, but it is about activating their spaces and their community as we begin to recover from this pandemic. They understand that $1 spent on a ticket to their programming translates to $3 for their neighbors in food and beverage, hospitality, and parking, etc. And they understand that people need art in their lives right now, and our sector will deliver that regardless of the cost. The financial burden of reopening is daunting for many of our organizations. And while many have increased their reserves throughout the pandemic through federal programs, increased philanthropy, and conservative business practices, there is a real concern that these reserves will be spent down quickly as they return to their spaces and programming with what you just saw is what is anticipated to be a significantly reduced audience. This pandemic is a marathon, not a sprint, and we really are only halfway through these effects. As Sung mentioned last week during King County Executive Dow Constantine's announcement of his $600 million American Rescue Plan budget proposal, he also mentioned being first to close and last to reopen. Our sector was first to close, and we are fighting now not to be last to reopen. In order to support this recovery, we will need to sustain the public and private funding that we saw in 2020. If we institutionalize the type of giving we saw during the pandemic, not only will our organizations be able to recover sooner, they will have more confidence to face whatever it is that's coming next. What we are learning from this pandemic is that while our sector, like many others, was not financially well prepared for a shock like this, whatever challenges we faced economically, we more than made up for by our ability to persevere. If we use what we are learning from this data to advocate for permanent increases in funding for the arts from both individual and public sources, then we will be able to thrive as a sector and provide support to the community throughout any adversity. And with that, I'd like to say thank you again to everyone, and I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah Sidman. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Michael. You heard the big numbers. 56% of organizations still with staff laid off or furloughed. 65% projected declines in earned income. And I'll add a few more numbers. While they are confident and committed to reopening, 35% of cultural nonprofits don't anticipate being able to resume in-person programming until the fall. and reopening dates for another 23% remain unknown. ArtsFund also collected data about changes cultural nonprofits have made to their operations this past year to better serve their communities during the pandemic. Check out our website, artsfund.org/COVID Arts Impacts for more on those, which include significant shifts in program delivery, partnership, ticket pricing, business models, and much more. And looking ahead, we also tracked themes in anticipated permanent shifts to the sector and how it operates. To share specific examples of the current and future impacts to our cultural nonprofits and the communities they serve, I am honored to be joined today by visionary leaders from phenomenal cultural organizations. I invite you, our panelists, now to join me on the screen and unmute. We're joined by Betsey Brock, Executive Director of On the Boards, Kevin Malgesini, Managing Director of Seattle Children's Theater, Rita Meher, the Executive Director of Tasvir, and Lua Pritchard, Executive Director of Asia Pacific Cultural Center. Thank you all for your time today and for all you're doing day in and day out. So to kick off our panel, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and offer the visual description, and as well as a brief overview of the current state of your organization. And I'll just go in the order you popped up on my screen. Let's start with Betsey, Rita, Lua, and then Kevin.
Hi, my name is Betsey Brock. I'm Executive Director of On the Boards. I use she, her pronouns. I am a light-skinned white woman, pink actually, and I'm wearing a green sweater. I have medium-length blonde hair, and I'm sitting in a yellow room with an orange and pink sofa. On the boards, I feel like we shifted, but we never stopped. We paused in the beginning, but we've spent the year creating drive-ins, offering safe rehearsal spaces to artists, and we recently closed our first in-person show, which was for 2 attendees, socially distanced and masked. We've made performances on the phone, we've had people in filming, but nothing like On the Boards pre-pandemic.
Rita?
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Meher. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a brown person of Indian origin from India with shoulder length hair, wearing an orangish Indian tunic and wearing some earrings. And I'm wearing glasses, reading glasses. Behind me is a bulletin board with my festival posters pasted on it, and a photograph of a boat with people commuting in Calcutta. And the state of our organization, Tasveer, is stable right now. When pandemic hit, there was a little jolt, as to everyone, to any organization that might have felt. We have 5 employees, 2 interns, and several volunteers. We had taken all our programs online, and as a matter of fact, we led a coalition of South Asian Film Festival and hosted the largest South Asian Film Festival in the fall last year with 45,000 views over 3 weeks. And we are very proud of that. All our events are online. We have no future. We don't know when we will go in person. Thank you.
Lua?
Yes. Hi, I am Falwena Pritchard. I'm the Executive Director of Asia Pacific Culture Center, and my pronoun is she, her, and I am a Polynesian woman wearing glasses right now. I'm light-skinned Polynesian and sitting in front of a picture with lovely coconut trees and a clear blue sky with a nice blue greenish ocean. Asia Pacific Culture Center Um, our mission is to bridge communities and generations through arts, culture, education, and business. And we represent, teach, and showcase about the 47 nations of all of Asia and all of the Pacific. Last year during the pandemic, we turned all of our programs and events into virtual settings, and we did wonderfully. And we were so excited about it. We're going to continue doing that as well as in person when we have a chance to get back. We're just now returning with very little because we have to go by the rules and so forth, and also following the vaccination kind of success. But we helped a lot with the pandemic because of our people needing language and cultural relevant services. So we had to step in a great deal in serving thousands of people in terms of the testing, the mask, the supplies for sanitation, the food service, the gift cards, all that kind of stuff. And we continue to do that now, but now we're helping the health providers get the vaccination out to our people. So we're looking forward to coming back in person, and we're looking forward to great things. And we're one of those confident arts organizations that we will be okay. Thank you.
Thanks all. First off, huge thanks to Sarah, Michael, Sung, and the whole ArtsFund team. ArtsFund right away stepped in and started the emergency fund to really help arts organizations, which was a huge boon towards the beginning of the pandemic. And then you have been this holder of information and data so we can more fully understand the full impact of the pandemic. So huge thanks for the work you've been doing. My name is Kevin Malgesini. I use he, him pronouns. I am a light-skinned white man with short brown hair wearing a light gray sweater over a blue collared shirt. Behind me is a bookcase with a few books, some art, and memorabilia. I have the honor of serving as the managing director at Seattle Children's Theater. Based on Seattle Center campus, but offering programming throughout Washington State, SCT has been around for over 45 years. At SCT, we have a dual mission, producing professional theater for young people and families, as well as offering a wide range of educational programming, all using the tools of theater and storytelling to engage young people in learning and play. Our education team has remained incredibly active throughout the last year, with a new virtual class offerings starting later this week. And while there's still a lot of unknowns, we are planning for in-person drama school programming this summer and professional theater back on the stages, hopefully in November.
I'm so caught up in the answers, I forgot my role in asking the questions. Thank you all. I'm going to ask a question, and I'll say let's keep this brief because we want to really look also to the future. But I'd love to ask, just in the present moment, what do you fear? What's keeping you up at night? And let's this time go reverse. Kevin, Lua, Rita to Betsey.
For me, the first thing that comes to mind is the impact on young people. I think the impact, young people have really taken the brunt of this impact a whole year at home, kind of being kept away from community and the impact on learning. And the next thing that comes to mind is the impact on schools, and the school system, especially public schools, are such important partners for many cultural organizations, and they've been really heavily impacted during this time. So I'm both slightly anxious and also a little bit hopeful about how we can use the recovery, hopefully to close some of the gaps rather than widen the gaps as we recover. The next thing for me is really our budget over the next 3 years, and the reality that this recovery is not a one-time thing. Our expenses will return to pre-pandemic levels right away, but it will take several years for our revenue to catch up with that. And I hope those people who've all stepped in and helped in this moment stick with us through that recovery.
And actually, let me underscore, Lewis, sorry, that the data that Michael shared about 70% of organizations being confident that they can reopen their doors, that data is simply about the moment of reopening and not about being able to sustain operations and programming thereafter. Thanks for highlighting that, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And also we fear the young people as well, the schools, because we're inside of the schools as well, and we can't, we haven't been able to be in-person teaching. We've been doing virtual, but we can only do so much virtually. children need to be back in school, and that's the fear that we have because of our programming as well with because making stuff together and touching and seeing each other is so important to that. We have a youth program that's really fantastic, but we can only do so much virtually as well. We're afraid about the upcoming graduation status as well, because if they've been lacking, because our youth program deals with high at-risk students, especially the ones who are supposed to graduate on time. We really fear the graduation rate for this year.
So thank you. And adding to Kevin and Lua's, I agree with that. And in addition to all that, I will add, Tasveer came together to create a community, a local community here. And we worked on this bonding, the community bonding for over 18 years. And the pandemic is kind of a threat to it. All the work we have done to bring the community together, there's a special healing and the strength that comes from when people come together under one roof and exchange ideas, and the empowerment that happens may wither a bit. And even after we resume it, it will take several years to bring the audience together and the community together. So that's a fear we have.
Betsey, did you want to share?
Yeah, I have many fears, and I echo what my fellow panelists have said. The economic uncertainty of not the immediate moment, but next year, a year from now, 2 years from now, and understanding that we've built up digital programs, and we've considered new ways of reaching audiences. And I do feel there will be an expectation and a desire to continue that work even after we're in person again. And the sustainability for a mid-sized organization to continue and not burn people out, not overload our small staff. And I also think about the considerations that we've made in the work we've done this year around recognizing white supremacy culture in arts and cultural organizations and the work that remains to be done. And balancing that with the financial responsibilities of running an organization and understanding how to incorporate that work into that kind of strategic planning.
Yeah, we're hearing that. We're hearing that across the sector, that those are challenges really broadly being faced. I have two questions. I'm debating which one to ask first. So I'd like to pivot a little bit, then looking forward. What's exciting you as we look forward? You can answer in any order you like. But what's exciting you about the future?
Well, I'll pick up because of what Betsey just said. I think innovation is always exciting, even if it comes out of hardship. And artists are nothing if not innovative. So the level of innovation that has happened throughout the last year, and that I think there will be an expectation of carrying forward, and an opportunity to continue creating and recreating how we tell story, how we connect, I think is extremely exciting. And then also off of what Betsey said, Seattle theater leaders are doing work around equity led by J. O'Leary Woods, which is just amazing to see organizations of all sizes coming together to talk about white supremacy and racism within the performing arts and what we can do to deconstruct that and build a more equitable future for the entire sector going forward.
I can add to that. And in addition to that, what we are thinking, due to the pandemic, we were always thinking to create these artist supports grant, but we felt an urgency due to the pandemic, and we understood what it's like to be an artist during the pandemic, where they might be struggling to create their art and films. So we immediately jumped on the ideas and created a film fund. And we are very excited to share that last year we gave out our first grant to the short filmmakers, and this year we are increasing 3 times. So we will be giving out 3 grants, and that's really exciting in our organization. So I think that's due to the pandemic, we are responding to those challenges, artist challenges, and because we are creative and innovative, we are coming up with new ideas. There's more accessibility to really artists all over the world, and we can easily bring them virtually to our local or online, and there's more accessibility to lots of artists, and they don't have to travel by air. So those are the exciting things.
Well, we're very excited to get back into in-person because, you know, our culture is all about hugging and kissing and being family oriented. So, and we have the latter part of like starting pretty soon, we're going to have big events. And so big events is very fun for us. So we're looking forward to that, to be in person with that starting in July. So, and then also this year is our 25th anniversary for Asia Pacific Cultural Center. So we're looking forward to a big, big event for that in the month of November. So we're really excited. We're geared up for getting back on the road and making sure that we showcase our cultures to the general public. And, you know, it's all I think that what's going on now with the anti-Asian and anti-Asian Pacific, you know, things that are going on that are violent and criminal, you know, we need to do positive stuff. And that's why we need to, Asia Pacific Culture Center need to continue to teach people about who we really are. And, you know, why would you think negative of us when we are this? So we're looking forward to that, to do more showcasing of our cultures.
I'm pretty excited about the hugging too. I do think that I'm looking forward to this moment when we can be together and experience art in the same room. There's nothing like the anticipation of walking into a performance. And I just personally, I want to be in a lobby, and I want to be in my own lobby, but I want to be in all of your lobbies. I want that experience of like, we're going in, we're going to see something and feel something and share an experience. And I want that anticipation, and I want the conversation afterwards, and I want the hugs.
I think we could all agree we all want the hugs. And I'm going to also say, just on ArtsFund's behalf, something we're excited about in the future, I'm just going to answer for us here, is ArtsFund is embarking upon a comprehensive statewide COVID-19 arts impact study that will not only include data collection from the cultural nonprofits, but also from patrons and audience members and the general public statewide. So this is a much broader and more in-depth study that will help us all understand the rippling and ongoing effects of what has happened and set a baseline against which we can measure post-pandemic changes in the evolution of our sector and the community that it serves. So we're really excited to be getting underway on all that. You will likely hear much more from us on that in the future. And speaking of hearing much more from us, I'm going to invite Michael to join us back on the screen. I have some more questions for the panelists, but we also want to open it up for the broader Q&A. A reminder, you can submit your questions only through the Q&A function on Zoom. And if you want to look, if you have any questions specific to the data, all data shared today and a lot more can be found on our website, which is artsfund.org/COVID Arts Impacts. I'm also going to take a quick pause of speaking so the ASL interpreters can switch. So while we're waiting for questions to come in, oh, I see them here coming in. There are a lot of questions coming in. Let me ask, of the changes that you have seen at your organizations or to the sector in response to the pandemic, what do you anticipate, what changes might be permanent? What are you seeing that you think will stick around?
Changes, the permanent changes for us will be virtual. We're going to keep the virtual programming because we can reach a lot more people around the world about who we are when we do things. So we found that out and it's exciting. So we want to keep it that way too. Going to do in-person plus virtual.
Yeah, same at the Sphere. We will keep the hybrid model, the virtual programming, as well as in-person programming. And more work from home.
I do think that we'll continue digital programming, growing on the board's TV, but also performances that happen via Instagram and maybe more audio pieces. Pieces that people can access from home, but also from outside Seattle.
Michael, what are you seeing sort of on a sector-wide basis?
Oh, what I think, Kevin, did you want to jump in?
Same as everybody else as far as virtual programming going forward. I think also a huge increase in partnerships. We've definitely, both locally with non-theaters, whether it's Classic King FM that we did Saturday Morning Stories with, or nationally, we co-led almost 40 theaters that together produced a kids play about racism. A deepening of partnerships like Northwest African American Museum, they really partnered with us on all the education material for a kids play about racism. So really, I think just even more leaning into how we can collaborate across the sector.
Thanks so much, Kevin. And the one thing that I think is, and I hope that we can encourage its permanency, not just over the next 12 months, but kind of forever, is the inclusion of equity conversations at every level of our organizations as part of a way to not just get out of this pandemic, but also to have a broader impact within our communities. I think a lot of times in the past, we've talked about equity as a separate entity that we needed to approach and fix, and we needed to get to this population or that population. But now what I'm seeing across the sector is this idea of equity being a central part of everyone's business plan. And it is key, apart from just being the right thing to do, it is key to how our organizations are going to survive and continue to be relevant now and in the future, because we know that as the data suggests, we're going to have to do a lot of work to bring our audiences back. And those audiences have the potential of being more full, more rich, more inclusive, and more representative of our entire communities. And we need that in order to be successful moving forward. So I think the fact that organizations are approaching equity with that lens and with that in mind is really promising and really encouraging for the future.
Well, and we're getting a number of questions on that theme, so I'm going to share a few of them. And if any of you don't all have to answer, but if any of you want to pop in, that would be great. So one question that is coming up is considerations of equity in relationship to artist access to virtual programming. This has to do with digital equity, broadcast quality, et cetera. I guess, and also I know a lot of organizations have been providing tools to the young people that they serve as well. So equity on the artist access front. And then there is another question on specific practices or procedures within your organization that have been geared towards addressing the need for the DE, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility measures within your organizations. Does anyone want to speak to that?
Yeah, I want to thank Michael for bringing that up, because that's certainly something that we, majority of us arts, culture, and arts organizations are doing that right now with the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're all going through training and to making sure that our individual organizations are being inclusive in those kinds of procedures and rulings to make sure there's diversity and equity and inclusion within our organizations. I know in Tacoma, Pierce County, we're doing that a lot in all different kinds of settings. Like Tacoma Create is making sure that to get their funding, we need to be DEI, and the same with Graduate Tacoma, and so much of the funding organizations are demanding that kind of ruling within our organization. So yes, that is so important, and that's a continue to work for the future and forever.
A number of questions also popped up related to the ArtsFund study, so I'll just answer a few of those. Someone brought up the question of how do we factor in phased vaccine rollout, and therefore, I suppose that's both to public perception, patron behavior, and organization reentry. Yes, that is at the crux of this study. We will likely be conducting the public polling and the data collection in the summer, and we'll need to be clear about the moment in time in which it comes, and we will be asking folks, if they are vaccinated, if they or will soon be, when asking the questions. I think this is a very unique moment in time. We are working with 3 expert consultants to develop the questioning and the sampling. Dr. William Byers from the University of Washington, Don Morgan from GMA Research, and Vivian Savath from Burke Consulting, and they are guiding and informing all of our data collection and analysis for that. There's also a question about, have we been surveying actors and individual artists? And that study has been conducted by Artist Trust earlier on in the pandemic, and they have more data related specifically to the impacts on individual artists. But in our survey, both the recent data collection and the upcoming one, you can really see the significant declines. Michael cited some of them in personnel expenses, and the hardest hit, the greatest declines have been in production and artistic personnel. And we are tracking that because for each one of those declines, those are people that we are talking about. Those are individuals. And I know one of the questions for the panel is, what are the hidden costs of this pandemic? I mean, those relate to the people. I don't know, Kevin, did you want to share anything on that, since I didn't give you a chance on the last question?
Yeah, for sure. The people are daily reminders of that, people that are still out of work. A majority of SCTs, normal artists and artisans, our union members who build and run the shows, are all still out of work. We have started slowly rehiring, especially we're starting to ramp that up a little bit now, but that is a cost. I think additionally for those that stayed, and I think everybody has mentioned this in one way or another, the new stressors on those that have stayed employed during this time and the worries about burnout. And so we're holding both that realities of a bunch of people who've been out of work for a long time and need a lot of community support and are going to need support in getting re-engaged in work. And then those that have kind of tried to sustain these organizations and these missions through a really challenging year.
Well, and Seattle wasn't an easy or affordable place for artists and cultural workers to live and work before the pandemic. And because many artists who are gig workers or working on contract basis were also working in the restaurant industry, it really is like insult to grave injury. And I am fearful that our region will lose a great number of artists, and those are people who are making the city a great place to live. So it is a grave loss.
We are fast running out of time on this digital news briefing, and there are many questions coming through. We will do our best. Hopefully you're finding the content on the website that you need, or you'll be able to find it in future correspondence with ArtsFund. I will say, to a question that just popped up, part of what is essential in terms of future funding and future funding support for the sector is deep understanding of what is happening, data, and the stories, the narrative that go with them. That is why we are so committed to data collection, advocacy, and leadership as prongs of our mission, and so grateful to all those, like the leaders on this call today, who are joining us and sharing their data and telling their stories. There are going to be permanent shifts to the way the sector operates. There are going to be permanent shifts to the ways we all operate. And we need to be understanding those those and tracking those and allowing those to evolve and understanding their evolution to be able to support and sustain this sector going forward, because this sector supports and sustains our communities in so many ways. I'm going to ask a quick round robin question before we have to close out for today, so that we can really end on an artistic note, just like we began. And this question goes to you as well, Michael. We'll wrap it with you. What are you seeing that's inspiring you? If you want to plug an artist or an organization, love to hear. Let's go, Lua, Kevin, Rita, Betsey.
What are we seeing that's inspiring is the fact that we are actually seeing so many of us together. Zoom meetings, I don't know if Zoom meetings has anything to do with it, but I have met so many other arts and culture organizations than ever before. I don't know if it's because we're coming together because it's hard times, but I'm loving it because I'm getting to know so many of you, so many of all of us. And that's the way it should be. I want it to continue, even when we come back in person, right? Okay, so that's what I'm excited about, is I'm getting to know more and more of my colleagues in the arts and culture world. Love it.
This morning, scrolling through Facebook, came across Red Eagle Soaring, some of their postings, and I have their communication has just been incredible around not just arts and culture and theater, but just a wide range of things impacting their community. And they're playing with new leadership structures, and it was exciting to see such a great organization that's impacting young people so well, really innovating and changing during this time in ways that I probably haven't tracked as closely as I should, but as I was reading through, I was really inspired by them.
I would say I had forgotten to prepare for this question, but what comes to my mind is how artists are continuing to create art and filmmakers are back on track and making films. I would like to plug Seattle International Film Festival that's come back with another edition of the film festival, which will be starting next week. So, yeah.
I am energized and excited about the partnerships that have developed over the course of the past year. And it's something that we've all participated in to some extent, but being part of an ecosystem that feels supportive and conversational and collegial, it feels like that has sustained me this year. I also made my first museum visit last week to the Henry, and it felt fantastic just to be in a museum and experience.
Michael?
You know, I'll just say that the inspiration that I'm gathering from all this is the levels of participation from everyone on this call and on this Zoom. ArtsFund, we measure a lot of our success by the amount of engagement that we see with our community, and we've seen such an uptick in participation in our events, in our surveys, in everything that we're doing, and that's within and without and outside of the arts and culture community. It'll lead into something that I think we're going to close on, but really that question of advocacy and engagement. There is a higher level of engagement and awareness of arts and culture as an industry, as a sector, and as a key part of what makes our communities healthy. And I hope that we can continue to expand on that, so more and more individuals are, tuning in to briefings like this and learning more about how all of these organizations are just essential to the fabric of their individual communities. So that's what's really inspiring me, is to just see that uptick in interest in what we're doing as a community.
Well, and then last question, I'll go straight to you, Michael. We're all interested. We're all here today. So what can people do? How can people take action?
You can give money and you can advocate. Though very, very simple. The data show that philanthropy, whether it is individual or whether it is through your corporate sponsors, is key in making sure that this recovery happens, and institutionalizing that will be key to lifting this sector up and making it more visible going forward. Another part of that is advocacy. We have seen a lot of really good movement from our federal government, from our state and local politicians about recognizing the space of arts and culture and how that needs to be supported from a public perspective, but you can never say it enough. So say it and say it again, and then say it one more time, because we really want to make sure that we're being heard and we are at the tables when these discussions are being had.
Thank you, Michael. Beautifully put. And you can do one more thing. If you want to come together with us and with one another again, please join us for ArtsFund's upcoming digital celebration of the arts on May the 6th. We are opening registration today just for you folks on the call. It's a free event from 12 to 1:30. It is a very fun and art-filled way to celebrate and support the arts. The link is in the chat, artsfund.org/2021 digital celebration. Thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you, Michael, for your leadership during this pivotal time, and Sung as well. Thanks to Lua, Rita, Kevin, Betsey, and Benjamin for joining us, and to all of our region's cultural nonprofits, staffs, artists, everyone who's doing all they can to keep our community connected and inspired during this very difficult time. Thank you as well to all of you for joining us again. I hope we will see you again, or at least you will see us at the digital celebration of the arts. Thank you all.